as the last speaker for the day, I'll very briefly highlight the assistance provided by the Sri Lanka Army towards implementation of the National Reintegration Program. To highlight this, I believe I need to put things in context. Let me begin at the beginning. The comprehensive and definitive defeat of LTT militarily in May 2009 marked a watershed in the contemporary history of Sri Lanka. What did we find? We found a shattered, battered, and a bruised community. The social, cultural, political, and traditional lifestyle of a people had been decimated callously and with no sensibility. Ladies and gentlemen, there was another phenomenon. There was another distinct feature in the activities of terrorists. Whilst there was this broad disintegration of the broad and cohesive nature of the traditional Tamil community, there had been yet another militant and violence-ridden society which was being formed. That was the network of terrorist families. The families of terrorists who had died whilst perpetrating violence was held in high esteem within the society. This network created apprehension among the fellow members of the community, and this type of radicalization warranted a comprehensive program at national level. Thus, the Presidential Task Force was established and a broad, comprehensive plan was initiated and implemented. Some of the distinguished speakers who preceded me today and yesterday emphasized and gave a lot of details on de-radicalization processes. Dr. Malkanti, Dr. Shafras, and Professor Ari Kruglanski scientifically presented their data on the effect of de-radicalization and moving ex-combatants away from violent extremism. And we are very grateful to Major General Ghulam Kumar for sharing the Pakistani experience with us. Our success, how was it possible? Ladies and gentlemen, the compassion ingrained within the Sri Lankan culture, the military's ethos of protecting and defending her citizens enabled the Sri Lanka's military to deliver this service towards a segment of her citizens who were misguided and engaged in terrorism. In explaining this, I would like to share with you all some of my personal experiences, I believe, which will be useful in understanding the magnanimity and the human service rendered by the Sri Lanka Army. It was January 2009 and I was the Forward Maintenance Area Commander in KILINOCCHI under the then Security Forces Commander and the present Commander of the Army today. What I witnessed then was a teeming of hundreds of people battered by the terrorist atrocities approaching the Sri Lanka Army, which was on perhaps the largest ever hostage rescue mission. The KILINOCCHI town, which is situated between Jaffna in the north and Vaunia in the south, was considered by terrorists as an important landmass. That was where perhaps they had all their important elements. Now, this is what we witnessed in KILINOCCHI then. I was subsequently moved to a different official appointment in late 2009, but returned after 3 years to KILINOCCHI as its Security Forces Commander in January 2012. With immense joy, I witnessed and encountered 3 things that I was astonished to see what effectively has changed the life of the public in KILINOCCHI, which had been subjected to terrorist brutality prior to completion of humanitarian operations. The rapid development taking place in the once terrorist infested town has brought hope for a future in the lives of people. Ladies and gentlemen, I saw a newborn town throbbing with activity and movements. Also, my second arrival to KILINOCCHI was a defining moment as a senior officer. I definitely felt that my role has certainly changed as the life of the town too has changed. I saw life returning to normalcy, children going to school, farmers returning to China cultivation, and people going about very freely without worries. This amply proved that the Sri Lankan model of 5R had succeeded. Though it has been mentioned that such programs require time, we see now on ground the successes that we have achieved. Ladies and gentlemen, the implementation of National Reintegration Program and the Army's support for it was not without challenges. The 2 key challenges we faced was reintegration of terrorist families back to the society and reintegration of child soldiers and women cadres. Dissolution of the concept of privileged treatment and elitism designated to the so-called terrorist families so that they could be reintegrated with the rest of the community was a major challenge that the Army faced. Here there is this group which had perpetrated violence not only against the armed forces but against their own community, and the efforts that we had to put in was to ensure that they are received well by the same community against which they had some time back perpetrated violence. Then reintegration of special groups such as women and children, or commonly known as child soldiers. This too was a big and a very challenging task, because as one of the distinguished speakers mentioned earlier, a child had to be treated like a child. These children had been carrying weapons, had been shooting, and they had known only the gun culture. After identification of these challenges, Army set about augmenting the other agencies which were involved in implementation of the National Reintegration Plan. I need to mention an important point here. The Presidential Task Force, comprising senior government officials, civil administrators, formulated the plan. The Army was subordinate to it. At no time did the Army held the primacy in implementing the National Reintegration Plan. It was a civilian-led plan which was augmented by the Army. Very briefly, I like to highlight the areas in which Army worked and helped implementing and sustaining the National Reintegration Plan. The assistance to ex-combatants was provided mainly on their needs to overcome livelihood difficulties. The special categories of ex-combatants such as women and children had to be provided with considerable assistance in this regard to remove the fears they had and to increase their confidence in the reintegration program. Mind you, gentlemen, here we were, are and will. We were and are helping those who fought against us a few years back. Sri Lanka Army, along with several other organizations, started working with these women cadre population to help and support to find their lost role within the community. At the same time, the children who had been separated from their parents were brought back and given back to their parents. Sri Lanka Army was very successful in providing the required assistance, since it was in a vantage position to coordinate and facilitate provision of such assistance which were essentially required on ground. In this regard, we ensured rapid distribution of material to needy on a priority basis. Because of our presence on ground, it was very easy and it was very convenient to distribute material to all those who were in need of such material fast and promptly. Then Army also ensured conduct of vocational training programs. This has been emphasized by a number of speakers who spoke before me. Then also facilitation and coordination of awareness programs for sustenance of livelihood activities. Then community assistance. Expediting the process of settling people in their original places of habitation was another big challenge and a priority for all who were involved in implementing the reintegration plan. Here again, Sri Lanka Army spearheaded in organizing and providing the required assistance. Requirements such as housing, infrastructure facilities, education facilities, health and sanitary facilities, and livelihood opportunities for the people who were settling down were the major issues that needed attention. The mega reintegration plan implemented by the Presidential Task Force to cater to these requirements was augmented by the efforts of the Sri Lanka Army. Let me elaborate a little on each of these areas. Army was aware from the inception that reintegration was more than mere return of civilians, resettlement and employment. Army undertook the initial responsibility of facilitating the livelihood programs for people including ex-combatants or beneficiaries to resettle. These included coordination of inflow of material required for livelihood programs and distribution of the same to needy on a priority basis. This enabled the people in the community to confidently settle down as their needs were being met without an interruption. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a feeling of settlement when someone has a roof above one's head, and the Army's pioneering work was to involve its labor force to help people to commence construction or renovation of houses as they began to settle down. Army commenced the construction of semi-permanent and permanent houses initially for returnees, including for ex-combatants. This paved the way for all who were returning to confidently seek appropriate livelihood opportunities, which essentially are one of the key factors for smooth reintegration. Figures, I believe, speak for themselves. With the rapid progress of resettlement, development and reconstruction of infrastructure facilities to commence, this single phenomenon has taken many people by surprise. because an intense level of social mobility is being experienced right across the region. The northern region is as if awoken from a long slumber. Sri Lanka Army's contribution towards infrastructure development, I believe, gentlemen, cannot be overstated. One of the sectors which was willfully destroyed by the terrorists was the education sector in the north. Army's involvement in providing assistance and opportunities in the area of education was through rebuilding and renovation of schools and easing the